In this wintry wonderland, we'll peep through some wintry plants at an illuminated Christmas tree. You'll need white and black, Prussian blue, middle green, and primary yellow, plus a little primary red if you want some red lights. If you don't have a tube of middle green or something similar, a mixture of primary blue and yellow will work. Begin with a curved pencil line for the horizon. Then we'll paint the sky a nice dark blue made with Prussian blue and black, but keep this dark colour around the edges. In the middle where our tree will go, we'll add a little more white to the mixture to give us the impression of a nice glow coming from behind the tree. When you've added the paint to your page, you can use a dry fluffy mop brush to softly blend the colours together. Once I had blended mine, I decided I wanted to bring the dark blue in towards the centre just a little bit more, so I added this to the page and then blended it all together, and it was much better this time. Don't be afraid to change things as you go or make small adjustments. For the snowy ground, I'm using my 1/2 inch angled shader and mostly white for the top edge, and then contaminating it with a little of the dark blue that's left on my palette to create some dimension and variety. I'm especially wanting to darken the bottom corners of the page to help give this scene kind of a vignette feel. And then you can just blend it all together a little until you're happy. Now it's time to add our tree. For the basic shape, I'm using a little middle green darkened ever so slightly with Prussian blue, and I'm stippling the paint onto the page with the tip of a size 4 round brush. I don't want to disturb the layer underneath, so I'm trying not to fuss too much with the brush as I go. This is not so much of an issue over the darker sky, but you'll almost certainly find that the green picks up a little of the white towards the bottom where the tree is painted over the snow. Don't worry about this though, we're going to add a little lighter and darker green to give our tree the impression of some branches, so you'll likely paint over any unevenness here. You can add a little white to your middle green mixture and add some clumps of this to the tree, roughly blending these marks in. We're going for some more texture here, so we just want a tree that's not all the same colour. Mix a little dark green from the middle green and Prussian blue to use for shadows underneath branches, and use this to dot under these brighter areas with the tip of your brush. Again, don't worry too much about exact shapes, just some irregular lines of this dark colour to give the tree some shadows will work. Now we can add some twinkly lights. The first thing we'll do is add white spots on the tree wherever you want your lights to be. Once the spots have dried, you can use a small fluffy brush with a tiny amount of white gouache worked into the end of the bristles to create a soft glow around these white dots. I'm adding the white in tiny circles over the white dots just to give them that glow. When you do this, you'll find you need to reload your brush often because there's so little paint in the tip. Just be sure to only use a tiny amount of paint at a time and work it into your brush with a few circular motions in a clean area of your palette before applying it to the page. And whatever you do, don't get your brush wet. This brush needs to stay good and dry so it doesn't disturb anything else on the page. Once all your lights have their little glowy halos, you can add some primary yellow to your white dots for warm fairy lights. Underneath the tree, we can make the snow a little shadowy. Use a mixture of blue and white for this. You've probably still got a bit on your palette somewhere, and just blend it into the lighter snow around it. Mix a watery white mixture and use this to sprinkle some snow onto your scene. You can also add some larger snowflakes with the tip of your round brush. For the plants that lean into the scene, we'll use a dark mixture. Here I've used a dark blue and I'm just using a size 4 round to paint in a variety of shapes. There's some larger leaves, stems with smaller leaves, and then some mistletoe leaf silhouettes. And I've arranged these around the whole edge of the scene, leaving my tree peeping in the center. I thought I wanted to add snow to my tree limbs, so I did, but then I decided it took too much away from the lovely glow of the twinkly lights, so I used the same green as the tree to get rid of this. I do love how forgiving gouache is. The final thing I did was to add some chunky snow in the foreground. I did this with the tip of my round brush and some titanium white to make these nice big blobs that are closer to us. And lastly, I made a few of my twinkly lights red with a tiny dot of primary red mixed with a little white to finish off this scene.